Bad movies. Amazing things created entirely by accident by someone trying really hard but lacking vision. Now, imagine the same wonderful thing but longer and more interactive. That is a bad video game. And now, try to imagine a bad video game based on a bad movie and made by people without a clear vision. Yep, this is a special kind of disaster. This is Hi, I'm Jay. I'm a monologist with a specialization in mistakes, both starting and making them. And today I'll be showing you a game that was killed by the people who loved it the most. Developed by Cryo Interactive, a fairly successful French developer known for adventure games like Atlantis and Dragon Lore, the game is loosely based on the 1999 American horror film Virus. And I know what you're thinking. Why was a French company that only made point-and-click games interested in licensing a failed movie? Welp, that is the exact question that made me want to play this game. And the more I looked into it, the further away I got from getting a satisfactory answer. The easy answer would be to boost the sales of the game and make some goddamn money! And that would be correct. But looking past that, it is harder to find a good reason. Don't get me wrong, the movie's concept is really cool, and that alone could have been the main appeal the developers saw, but even after considering that,
I don't know.
It doesn't feel like a logical idea. It feels just as weird as when I learned that the Caesar salad was created in Mexico. I mean, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with it, but it just feels wrong. One thing that made perfect sense, however, was for this game to be a survival horror title. Some of the best and most critically acclaimed games from the later half of the 90s were horror stories set in secluded places like a mansion, a small town, or a spaceship filled with an overwhelming and oppressive force of evil terrorizing fairly normal people. And that makes this particular movie a perfect example of these types of stories. But somehow, even after having the perfect setting and story, the developers still managed to mess it up. And to show you what I mean by that, let's finally take a look at the original film. But before we begin, thank you so much for choosing to spend your valuable time here with me. It really means a lot. The movie opens by showing us the hijacking and complete destruction of the space station Mir and a Russian research vessel that was in communication with it by an entity from space. We then cut and get introduced to the Sea Star and its crew, Captain Robert Everton, navigator and ex-Navy Jamie Foster, played by the beautiful Jamie Lee Curtis, the boat engineer Steve Baker, and the other unimportant people. Except for this guy. He is the best character in the whole movie. After losing their cargo in a storm, the captain goes a little bit crazy contemplating all the money he just lost. But fortunately, once they make it to the eye of the storm, they find the Russian ship we saw in the opening scene. Following Mr. Krabs' teachings,
I like money.
they board the ship, planning to claim the $1 million rescue to the Russians, until a survivor of the original crew warns them about all the craziest stuff inside the ship. And that's when we meet the evil guys, amalgamations of flesh and machine that look so freaking cool. Actually, most of the special and practical effects in the movie are phenomenal. From the eye of the storm, the sinking of the Sea Star, and the creatures, oh, they all look so cool. To whoever designed the monsters, hats off to you. You did an amazing job. The crew starts dying one by one, trying to kill the entity that is creating the creatures, while this absolute legend goes crazy with his best impersonation of the Joker.
I'm the Joker, baby.
A bunch of fights happen, and after a really intense and gorgeous looking sequence, our protagonists finally manage to blow up the boat and everyone lives happily ever after. Well, everyone that survived, that is. The end. Really solid concept, fun performances, although a bit over the top, and a half-decent story. The plot is as thin as Ice Spice's dress in that SpongeBob event, but the concept and visuals work overtime to elevate the film to a a meh level. Maybe even to a okay, but nothing higher. Now, knowing how the movie plays out and having in mind what worked in other horror games of the era, let's see how the game did. It opens by showing a pretty cool cutscene of sailors getting picked up one by one in a ship by disturbing half-flesh, half-machine creatures. We then reach the main menu, and after starting a new game, we are introduced to our protagonist, Joan, a police officer trying to infiltrate a building infested with monsters alongside our partner, Sutter? Wait, what? Okay. Surely after this part we will go back to the boat, right? Right? Nope. The vast majority of the game happens in a hotel, and instead of building up the suspense at the beginning, like in the film, now we just fight the creatures from the first moments of the game. Why? Especially for a survival horror, you would try to build up the creepiness of the world a bit and then release the chaos, just like the games these developers were trying to copy do. But I guess that would have been way too predictable and good for the game. So we start from the sewers, trying to enter the Nakomi Hotel, and wow, the protagonist's model is so low poly that I would even dare to call it no poly if I was a dad with a passion for bad jokes. Killing some tiny monsters, we reach a terminal that unlocks a door, and before we activate it, our partner warns us that it has been infected by the entity. Okay, I like that. Is the game trying to set up the fact that the entity can infect technology as a main mechanic? Well, no. The infected terminals only appear like 3 more times and have no real impact on the overall experience, accidentally creating another amazing mechanic and immediately killing all the potential it had. What does have an impact is the absurd lag created by the enemies spawning in. Every single time you get into a big fight, the game starts to behave like a PowerPoint presentation, which would not be a problem if there were less combat encounters, but I guess the developers ignored the horror part and got obsessed with the survival part instead. We quickly find out that enemies hit really hard and get our first game over screen, a screen that will become really familiar by the end of the game. Something I do want to highlight are the cool load screens you get every single time you load the game. For what I can tell, they are all original visuals, both referencing the movie and the game, and the purple and blue color palette makes them look extremely ominous. It's just so good. Coming back to something not as nice, we kill the monsters and enter a new room where there are even more enemies and an elite creature firing at us from the middle of the arena. See, one of the biggest issues this game has is taking a perfect premise for a really atmospheric and slow-paced horror story and making it a run-and-gun game. You don't really feel fear or tension when entering a new room. You just look around for the next thing you need to shoot at. Our partner helps us find the path forward, and after falling through a hole, we fight an enormous robot with bits of flesh hanging from his whole body. Again, amazing creature design. And finally, arrive at the hotel, finishing the first chapter. To be honest, not much happens from this point forward, so I'm just gonna save you the tedious repetition. We just kill some monsters, unlock some rooms, save a few people, and then kill more monsters. Does that mean that I'm not having fun? No, quite the contrary actually. I'm really enjoying the game, and even though the encounters get a little unfair at some points, it is a really entertaining experience, at least gameplay wise. And that's what made me really try to ask the universe why this game was ever made the way it was. You had a decent action game with a serviceable plot and an entertaining gameplay loop. You could have really made an impact if you had made it an original IP with a cool protagonist and creepy but difficult boss fights. Like, basically, you already were 90% of the way there. So why Why did you decide instead to license a movie which plot you were not going to use anyway and that brought absolutely nothing to the game? I believe this game is the perfect example of something good being completely destroyed by people with the best of intentions. It could have seemed like a good idea to the film studio to license a cheap game to promote their not so critically acclaimed movie, and it probably also seemed like an amazing opportunity for a small studio to expand their horizons and give it their all. But without a clear and cohesive vision, even things that work on paper fall off almost as soon as you try to bring them to life. Anyway, we finally reached the top floor of the building, and after defeating a pretty entertaining double boss battle, we find out that the reason there are so many monsters in here is because the ship we saw in the intro cutscene belongs to this company, and one of the crewmates is John's brother. So now we need to go to the docks and get rid of the alien menace. We find our way to the boat, reunite with our brother, and have a final confrontation with the big evil entity. And after some heavy losses, we manage to defeat all the monsters, blow up the ship, and escape with our brother, ending the game in a similar way than in the movie, but with a completely different feeling and with a really cool reveal that would have been extremely hype for any other game that was not this one. The end. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Virus It Is Aware. I gotta say, I'm glad that they at least followed the spirit of having really cool monster designs, but other than that, both products are so fundamentally different that they shouldn't even have the same name. It's not that I hate both pieces of media, I actually believe I became one of the few people who legitimately liked both of them, but I just can't ignore how many stupid decisions were taken while creating them, and how those decisions unknowingly made sure both products would become immediate failures as soon as they premiered. But anyway, I would still recommend you watch the movie if you like practical effects and cool monster design, or play the game if you like tight gameplay and, who knows, are looking for solid ideas for new action or horror games. And that was the video. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you want to support the channel, subscribing and leaving a thumbs up would do wonders. Also, leaving a comment with any recommendations you have would probably not help the channel, but will make me very happy, and that is even better. If you want more retro game videos, you can check this playlist. And if you want more content from your humble servant, you can follow me on Blue Sky and on Twitch, where I usually stream multiple retro games and MMORPGs. Again, thank you so much for being here. Much love and bye-bye.